Today we're talking about putting waistbands on skirts since we're in the middle of our skirt unit. So, remember our continuous lap placket from last week? I put one on a little piece of muslin that is almost like a little mini skirt, although it's too small even for Missy over there. And so this is our continuous lap placket from last week. I started on the right side and I wrapped it around the seam allowance. I had to clip here so that my skirt seam allowance is now inside. And then I stitched across the bottom of the placket so that it would always look nice. And then we'll press it to one side and the right side of our skirt will overlap the left. So now we just need to put something on the top of this. So there are a few ways to do this. A lot of commercial patterns will have you cut a piece like this. So this is going to finish 1 inch wide, and so I have my 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then 1 inch of face, and then 1 inch of the wrong side, and then 1/2 inch of seam allowance, so that when it's finished, I have a 1 inch wide waistband with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I can just seam this on the top. I don't like this, because with no interfacing, it's too floppy. And if I were to put something stiff inside it, like this stuff, which is called Petersham, I could sew this to the wrong side. But I think that this makes up kind of thick and nasty. So this is not my favorite waistband. What we do at Eric's is to only put fabric on one side of this Petersham. So I'm going to start, this is the face of my fabric and this is my Petersham. I'm going to start with the Petersham on the face side of my waistband, and I'm going to go ahead and sew that in. I'm going to make sure that I backstitch, and I'm stitching this at just 1/4 inch, guys. So I'm going to trim my threads. And now, before I started, I figured out that this is the right length, but I've only got a 1/4 inch seam allowance at my ends. So I'm going to go ahead and seam this on here first, because I think it's easier to see what in the world I'm doing if I do that. But truthfully, I often will go ahead and finish the ends first. So I know that I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance at both ends of this. So I'm going to mark that 1/4 inch here. And then right sides together, I'm going to start this right at the edge of where my placket is turned back for my overlap. And I'm stitching this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to make sure that I backstitch. And then I'm going to stitch this on to the top of the skirt at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. as I come to the end, I'm going to stop sewing when I hit the end of my placket, which this side is facing out because it's the underlap side. Okay. So now I have something that's starting to look like a waistband. So I'm now going to roll this to the inside so that I have a nice clean 1 inch on the outside. And then all of this seam allowance is going to press up and go in between my Petersham and my skirt waistband. So I'm going to take this over to the ironing board and I'm going to press all of this up. Okay, so now I'm going to want to finish this end. So this is going to be finished here, but I want this to be turned inside. So note that this is finishing here. So I'm going to turn this so that I get a fold right at the top of the Petersham. And then I'm going to stitch and I'm going to finish this end and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Walk with me. And I've gotten bobbin art, so I'm going to have to clean this up and try again. That sounds better. All right, and then I'm going to come over to the other end and I'm going to note where this wants to finish. And I'm going to do the same thing. I want this to finish here, so I'm going to fold it there and I'm going to stitch this closed. Okay, I'm going to trim all my threads. And now I'm going to turn my waistband right side out. So this is the edge. So you see that I've wrapped around my Petersham by 1/4 inch and then I've come around on the other side. Now, you guys don't have Petersham. I was gonna give you some. So what can you use to do your 7-inch sample at home. Come back up to my face. So you can use grosgrain ribbon if you've got it. You can use Petersham. You can use satin ribbon if you've got it. Grosgrain ribbon is like this. So the grosgrain ribbon is a ribbon it's soft. It's way softer than our Petersham, but it has this strong rib through it. And it would do in a pinch. And whatever width ribbon you have in your house, you want to cut your waistband strip 1 inch wider than that, so that you have your 1/4 inch plus a 1/4 inch at the top, and you have your 1/2 inch at the bottom. If you don't have any ribbon at your house, you can cut a strip of paper, and you can do your sample using a strip of just lined paper or better white paper, and just treat it like a 7-inch piece of the Petersham. So what I want from you for next week is a sample that's 5 to 7 inches long of this waistband, but not sewn to a skirt. In class, we're going to talk about other ways that you can finish the top of a skirt, because you might need some of those for your final project. Okay, so this is our skirt closure at the back, and we do skirt closures like this all the time at Eric Winterling. These skirt closures are all over opera and Broadway and many theaters around the country. And what we do is we do a hook at the top and then just a couple snaps on the placket. Okay? So I will see you on Monday at 11:30 on Zoom. I will be sending you a link so that we can all have class. Hang in there, and I'll see you soon.